Meditations with Ryan Zlomek.
Hello again, listeners. You've made it back. Or maybe you're here for the first time. Either way, I'm very honored to spend time with you today and welcome you to Meditations with Ryan Zlomek. I don't think I need to say my name. It's kind of implied with the title of the show. But I will tell you one really important thing about myself, which is I have an unhealthy love of food, especially food that I discover that maybe has sort of a unique angle to it, or more importantly, is tied to places that I love or that I love visiting. When people come to see me from out of town, before we talk about what attractions are around or where we want to go for a walk or what entertainment's happening, the first thing that I do is I give them the lay of the land of the culinary empire that is where I live, which is Syracuse, New York. Today, we're going to have a very food-centric conversation with somebody who I just adore. Today, we're going to be talking with Dave Forman. He's a food blogger and the TV host of the show Plate It Pittsburgh, which is featured on the very local app. Dave is an encyclopedia of knowledge, not only about the language of food and the way in which we talk about food, but also the mechanisms that are in place to help us figure out where we want to dine, who we want to dine with, what type of cultural experience you want. In this conversation, we're going to talk about his sort of rise to becoming a recognized food blogger, food critic. We're going to talk about the different types of dining experiences and how we interpret Michelin Stars, James Beard Awards, the diamond system through AAA. But more importantly, this is a conversation about passion. This is a conversation all about the way in which it is important for us to take our passions and let them be known to the world, because only then can they incubate into something magical. So with that said, let me introduce you to Dave Forman. Dave, thank you for joining today.
Thank you for having me.
It's for listeners out there, I was running through my Dave Forman Rolodex in history, and I think we've been good friends since 2018. We discovered each other through chance at a pinball tournament in Ye Olde, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, the home of Dave Forman. And right off the bat, learned that we had a frightening amount of things in common.
Yeah.
It's great. And it's one of those things where, part of the reason I'm so excited to talk to you today, Dave, is because there's people that you connect with and they remain stagnant. And there's people that you connect with, and then those connections kind of fall away. And then there's the Dave Forman-like connections where you meet somebody, you get to know them really close, really quickly, and then you get to see them evolve. And I remember when we first met in 2018, we had a conversation about goals. And one of the goals that you specified was that you really wanted to step up your food blogging game. You really wanted to kind of become a food blogger. And now here you are as the host of a food show, courtesy of the popularity of your food blog, which is pretty cool.
It's an amazing turn of events. But again, it feels almost as random as getting matched with you in that pinball tournament. I mean, I want to say, like, we both put in the work to end up at that exact point, but there was some nice choices of others that definitely resulted in that positivity.
Yes,
So
thank you.
I still feel incredibly lucky.
We would like to publicly thank the Pinburg algorithm for putting us together to play a game of Future Spa way back when. And for those of you who are not into pinball, that's where we're probably going to try to end our pinball references today. So you are very welcome. So Dave, you are alternatively known as David The Gastronome. And you are somebody who has an inherent passion for food.
Yes.
So for people who are unfamiliar with, I guess for lack of a better term, your brand, can you tell us a little bit about David the Gastronome and its history?
Sure, absolutely. So I've always been a lover of just food and sharing meals. Thanksgiving was always the biggest holiday of the year for the family getting together, enjoying a meal. So we put a lot of focus on meals and meal sharing. And when I met my wife, I would take her out to these new restaurants, these new experiences, things she's never been to or gone to, and opened up the whole world of culinary experiences with her and also my friends. They always ask me when they come into town, where do I need to go? What's the new restaurant to check out? What's the new cuisine? What's the new trend? And so finding that love and finding that passion, I was able to channel it through a food blog. And I was writing it kind of just for myself. And then I kind of started advertising it more and more. My wife came up with the name David The Gastronome, based on David the Gnome, when an old 80s, I think it was Dutch, weird Netherlands gnome cartoon. He wrote a fox and he nose kissed with his wife. But it's a very iconic gnome, David the Gnome. And so being able to have that pun, that's very me, of the gastronome, based on that character, that experience, and being able to build up the brand of the Instagram that I've got, the website that I haven't updated in like 4 years. But that's where it all started, and that's where they found me. That's where Very Local reached out and said, would you be interested in hosting a live? And I'm sorry, would you be interested in host? Sorry, they reached out to me and said, would you be interested in hosting a cooking show? And I said, absolutely, 100%. And so that's where it all worked out from there, and it's been an amazing experience.
That's awesome. So with David the Gastronome, I'm just picturing, everybody at Nick Jr. being really stoked that that brand is living on. Um, your food blogging, and the thing that I just think is really interesting about it is that you live in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and
Hmm.
Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania is it's a city. It's a large space. It's known for the headquarters for Mr. Rogers. It's my favorite, the birthplace of modern zombie culture.
Mm.
It's known for their sports teams. For those into sports ball and sports puck, I hear there's some Penguins, some Pirates, some Steelers there.
Hmm.
But most people think of it as the Steel City. They think of it as this like very blue collar, kind of industrial city, and they forget things like it's also the home of Heinz ketchup. I mean, there's like
Yeah.
an inherent food, uh, just I don't know, food rumbling within the city. How has being like is it Pittsburghian? Is that what's the
Pittsburgher.
a
Yeah.
Pittsburgher
Hmm.
with lettuce and tomato? How has
Yeah.
being a Pittsburgher sort of impacted you as a food culturalist or as a food writer?
Absolutely. Yeah. So being born and raised here, I've seen the way that the food scene has changed here so much. We were definitely known for putting French fries on things. The Primanti's sandwich is probably our most famous culinary export, where it's just a sandwich with coleslaw and French fries on it. It's been cooked with some kind of meat and cheese, and it's way too big and it's way too unhealthy on white bread. So there's really not a lot of cultural significance or a lot of value in a sandwich like that. The trope around it was that it was created for the truckers who would come into our shipping district. They would drop their loads off in the morning of fruits and vegetables, and they needed something on the road, so they could only drive with one hand and eat with one hand. So they just put everything together, wrapped it all up in a sandwich, and then took that on the road. That is definitely our claim to fame, but I think that's more of just the entry into what Pittsburgh food is a very strong Eastern European background. So you see a lot of Polish, Hungarian restaurants, things we just take for granted. Pierogies are huge here, but we've also got a lot of red sauce Italian joints that you don't see outside of the Midwest, where it's just like the spaghetti and meatballs, the linguine with clam sauce. There's a lot of that, just like not fresh bread basket uh, on the plate. There's a lot of really interesting, very Pittsburgh unique food movements, but I'm also loving the cultural expansion now. So we've got this great Chinatown with all these amazing Sichuan restaurants that are being recognized by the James Beard Awards every year. We've got these incredible bakers that are coming in from New York, stopping in their way between Chicago and Philadelphia, or New York City in the South. We're a really well positioned globally positioned place just to be a hub for food. And so I'm loving the new voices that are coming through in food that are changing the Pittsburgh landscape, but still keeping that heart of for the people by the people.
Interesting. So in the spirit of like that dining experience, I want to sort of separate these things a little bit. Like you're a world traveler. You're heading to Germany soon. You've been to Japan, you've been to a bunch of other countries that I can't think of right now. And when most people go on excursions, they are, saving their extra dollars for, some sort of extreme sport or, like some sort of amusement park or something that, is iconic, for the souvenir you're going to take home. Whereas when you're traveling, you're focused on, which Michelin star restaurant are we going to completely, spend the last few months of, of our paychecks on.
One of the countries visited a couple of years ago, we went to Italy, going to Florence, Venice. Uh, the approaches to food there, a lot of them, they build their communities around food. Fishermen build these communities around the water where the sources are. Farmers build their dishes and build what's available. So you'll have more meat cows than dairy cows. So you see that reflected in the meals and their, the certain the dishes they offer. So I loved exploring what's the history of the food in this area. What are the cultural meals? What are the things they've made their whole lives? Like one of the things that was fascinating to me going to Florence, a lot of people talk about the Florentine steak. That's more of a modern concept, whereas the original like Florence dish, what they were known for was this beef tripe stomach sandwich, and that came from, it's just like pickled and vinegared, and it has to be, what could they make do with, because they were so far inland, they were so far from the coast, they didn't have access to fresh farmland, so they had very few cows, but they had access to organ meats. So in these butcher shops, these like slaughterhouses around, what was left over for them to eat was this tripe stomach. And so while that's been kind of tipped on its head, where Pittsburgh wants to be the steak and lobster when we're more of the French fry capital, Florence wants to be more of the steak, Florentine steak, and the higher end cuts of meat, rather than, no, we're the offal, OFFAL, we're the organ meat capital of Italy. And it's just so fascinating to me exploring that, finding that history, finding that restaurant's been around from the 1800s, serving the recipes the same way that someone's grandmother or great grandmother went and ate. That's really how you get to know the people, where they came from, who they are, through their food. And I love exploring that. When we went to Paris, going to these fine dining Michelin starred restaurants, like the finest restaurants in the world, but also going to their red market, which is just a farmer's market. And there's a guy, and he's got his meats and his cheeses that he brings, that he gets himself, and he makes sandwiches. And so, Cafe Mian Mian, I still remember just as much as, Joel Robuchon, and just like these very high-end restaurants. So they take such an art and a passion in their food. I think that's everywhere, from the smallest island nation to the largest, metropolis, that you get to know the people and you get to have a reflection of the people through their food, their history of where they came from, and their future of where they're going.
That's amazing. And what about in Pittsburgh? How did you get to the point where you were able to really start to discover like the offerings that were there, and what really kind of like blew the lid off of this whole just food cultural experience for you locally?
So growing up, it was definitely easier just to go to the strip malls, to go to the larger areas. There was like, well, what chain restaurants do we have? Where the Red Lobsters? Where are the Applebee's? Where are the Olive Gardens? And then what you start to see is outside of those neighborhoods, when we started traveling more outside of the commercial districts, that in the middle of those would be like Joe's Pizza Shop, and they'd be like, okay, well, how's Joe do pizza? Well, how does Mario do pizza? How does Minio do pizza? And then so Pittsburgh pizza was a great inroad to, like, we asking a Pittsburgher what their favorite pizza in Pittsburgh is like asking a mother to name their favorite child. It's just, there's so many different types and kinds and approaches. I think Pittsburgh pizza is an incredible, just beautiful melting pot of pizzas from all over the world. And we also have our own styles too, where it's just like, you've got Beaver Valley pizza, where it's just raw with raw toppings on top of hot pizza, where you've got square cut party trays that are cooked just barely, and then the toppings are added raw. Just really fascinating giant pies covered in cheese and meatballs, and these wild approaches. But that was definitely my like gateway into, who else does something differently than I may have tried originally. So where I'm familiar with Italian food, trying a Hungarian restaurant, trying a Polish restaurant, trying an Uzbeki restaurant. We would have, there was a Romanian pop-up that would come in, and the guy would, set up every year and just offer his own cooking. He brought in people from outside. There's a Hungarian gentleman who had his own kitchen where he had exchange students that he would bring in every year, and they would cook from Hungary, and they would also only speak Hungarian, but he's speaking English, feeding you his food as well as offering a learning and training experience for these kids. And that kind of inroad was just like, oh, what other offerings are there? What other options are there? And now I think we've got some of the best Szechuan Chinese restaurants I think I've ever been to. And I try them all over the world, and I some of them don't compare, but some of them exceed what we're doing here in Pittsburgh.
I love the fact that very rarely can I talk with someone who says, we've got the best blank food.
You can tell the real ingredients made with heart, made with love from these chefs. That these restaurants, they don't always look like fancy places. Sometimes there's just holes in the walls, but it comes out on the dish, and you could taste that love. It's just it's amazing to me.
Well, I love that you just said the word love, because it's actually something that I had on my agenda, which is, I listened to this interview, I don't know, a few months ago, and they were talking about the missing ingredient in food, and the idea that the missing ingredient, that the thing that prevents us from truly feeling nourished in the majority of the food that we eat is love, and that if you know that when you have a meal that has been lovingly and caringly and empathetically put together by somebody, whether it's a romantic partner or your family or friends who you haven't seen in a long time, it holds a totally different place in your soul than food does when you're just getting something to eat. Like me personally, if you evaluate the flow chart of my eating, the amount of unloved Cliff Bars that are that are in my soul are crazy. It's amazing that I still have friends after all that. But I'm curious about, for you, like, how this is super amorphous, but I'm when you're evaluating something and you're eating food and you're thinking about writing about it, and you're thinking about communicating that experience to somebody, there's a level of pressure about the way in which you evaluate that environment, and then you're also thinking about the love that it's prepared with. And I'm curious about, like, how love plays a role in you as a food connoisseur.
I think that's so vital, both from the consumer and the creator's standpoint. I can only talk personally from my consumer standpoint, where knowing as the eater, the receiver of the art, that when you get that dish, that special dish, there's something about exploring a menu and seeing, yes, this is the one that they make for them. There's a lot of dishes you can see on menus that, oh, well, I got to make this for the public. I got to have a turkey sandwich. I got to offer lasagna. I got to offer ravioli. But when you get to that specific special item on the menu, oh, this is interesting. This is different. Why would they offer this? What's unique about this? This is from their homeland. This is a cultural dish. This is a personal dish. Ordering that, tasting that difference in that dish. A big easy recommendation I can make is the special of the day. Usually the chef is given like opportunity to create something from scratch that wouldn't appear any other night. And so it's one night only with those ingredients. Maybe they picked that day at a farmer's market, or maybe they sourced locally. They were able to get that you will get to experience and share that experience with them. So finding that universality in the language of food, it's 100% a universal language. We cannot speak the same spoken language, but I can understand you through your food, and I can understand your passion and your love and your skill and the quality that you bring, that you present it to, because obviously we eat visually as well. And then finding when I'm describing that food in the written medium, which is almost like it feels impossible to do, to describe this flowing, beautiful, lyrical symphony of tastes on just paper, but finding that foundation. How does it remind you? How does it make you feel comforted? How does it make your taste buds react? How do you find those strong notes? What would stand out for everyone? What do you find that's obvious? And also, what do you find that are maybe the little hidden notes around the corner, the little criticism or insight you might be able to offer versus a fresh tomato versus a roasted tomato? Calling out those differences. I love being able to do that, but also describe as best as I can something that has shown me love and shown me care that I can now share with the world.
Have you, oh man, I have so many questions I want to ask. You gave me a perfect segue and I'm going to ignore it for like a moment. But I'm curious, like, I don't know, maybe this is getting a little too into the weeds, but like, have you had a meal that you feel changed you afterward?
Oh, absolutely, no question. The 3-star Michelin restaurant meals, it's an experience. It's like going to a museum and being shown art that only you see, that is painted only for you to consume. And once you've done that, it is gone forever. The other people can see and make copies of the Mona Lisa, but this is your Mona Lisa that you get to consume 100% made just for you by an artist and being served to you at the highest end of service and care, and you're in an experience that I don't think can be replicated ever, even if you go to the restaurant the next night. And so you become ultimately changed. And then being able to go to a food stall, just somebody slinging out 1,000 of the same dish. I remember this herring sandwich that I had in Amsterdam. It was just a snack on like a Tuesday afternoon. We're on vacation, and I wanted to get some pickled herring with some pickled onion, and it was just so transformative. And I remember the way the sun reflected off the water that day as I ate this salty, sweet snack. And it's like, yeah, that's something that I will carry with me forever. That will be immutably changed through the gift of just a stall owner, a food stall guy who's like, yeah, I make 1,000 of these sandwiches a day, but for me that special one was made just for me. I got to consume and enjoy and experience and remember, and now I get to tell the story of that sandwich that can never be repeated.
Oh, that's amazing. And I'm gonna continue to disregard your segue for one more follow-up question, which is, one thing that I want to be really mindful of is that food has food, especially in our culture, has a socioeconomic it has a series of problems when it comes to personal finance and people's ability to get access to food. One of the things that I thought was really interesting watching what was it? I think I watched the Date Night Delight episode of Played at Pittsburgh, which we'll come to later. But both competitors were playing to hopefully donate money to a charity which was focused on reusing food that restaurants would normally throw away to be able to provide meals to people in Pittsburgh. But I want to acknowledge that. I want to just state that, like, as you know, Dave and I are two middle class bros from towns that are inspired by the Midwest who live moderate lives so that we can afford to go out to eat, and not everybody has that privilege. But I want to try to reshape the way in which we typically frame what a Michelin star restaurant is, because I think that at least in my purview, and I don't necessarily think I'm alone in this, there's a series of restaurants that I just sit there and I think, well, oh, okay, cool. That's a Michelin star restaurant. I'll never be able to afford that. Or, oh, James Beard Award, cool. Like that reservation's going to take 6 months to get, and I'm not sure I'll be able to ever have that. But you have enlightened me to the idea that these awards and these accolades should not be viewed as an elitist designation. That a Michelin star does not always mean that it's a restaurant where it's going to be $500 a plate. Sometimes it means something very different. So would you be kind enough to kind of explain to our listeners how the Michelin star works? I think that would probably be a really good place to start, and to kind of talk about what that experience is, because it's not fiscal. It's something very different.
Absolutely, yeah. So the origins are actually from the tire company. A lot of people make that joke. A tire guy is going to tell me where to go eat. Where was it worth the wear and tear you would put on your tires? So Michelin would have a rating star, and now it's obviously transformed and been changed from 1 to 3 stars. But they also have a Bib Gourmand section. They've got a whole wonderful recommended section, and then it's a range of prices. From there's a food stall, a hawker stall, I believe. I don't know where. I think specifically Thailand, where it's just like $5 noodles, but they're Michelin rated. And so I want to say it's either 1 or 2 stars. It's consistency of service. It's consistency of quality, consistency of delivery. It's offering a unique experience in your dining experience that you may not be able to reproduce anywhere else. Don't get me wrong. When you say a 3-star Michelin restaurant, you usually are talking a higher end place. You're talking about a place that's you're going to spend more money. But anything on their lists can just range from an incredible bakery that's serving the best baguettes in the world that are 250, or these very high end restaurants. So the Michelin recommendations, I definitely say you can look at their website. You can use their guide for free to explore, and they've got everything's very transparent there. Here are all the prices. Here are all the approaches. Here's the way you feel of comfortable ambience or not. But just like with James Beard, they want to identify, and they want to focus on the best of the best, and whether that's some just old man who lives, in the edge of the woods, who gets his own mushrooms and makes the most amazing mushroom omelet you've ever had in your life and charges $1.50 for it every day, or a chef who's got a team of 800 working under him and he's got all these accolades and awards. It's that beautiful variety where it's up to you. You can choose, and you're going to have an incredible dining experience wherever you go within that Michelin list, within that James Beard list, or even just a personal recommendation from folks. I don't ever want a restaurant to be out of reach or to be inaccessible. I never want to describe a food experience that only I can have. I will never write up an influencer event where I'm like, I was invited to this restaurant and the chef cooked for me and you can't get this. It's like, no, I'm going to go there when they're open, and I'm going to go there, in public, and experience it as anyone coming off the street could experience it, because that's how what I want to describe is the universality of the experience, rather than because I paid this much money for this meal, then I'm able to enjoy these things. I never want it to be that.
Well, and I think that's really just important, that accessibility idea, because I think, oftentimes we either disregard food as it's just a thing I got to do. That's if Ryan Zlemek needs to meditate on anything, it's that. But on the flip side too, I mean, there's a networking component to it that is really nourishing and, empowering, and community building. There's ways in which we can use food, and food dialogue to help, promote things that are important to us, by getting people to step into restaurants and to interact with those that they might not have otherwise. And it's a slippery slope, to ensure that you do it cautiously and in a way that's fair to everybody involved. Most importantly, the people making this food with love. Going back a little bit, but I think we just touched on a little bit, is I want to talk kind of about how people discover new important culinary landscapes that are happening in their own communities. And I love the fact that you reference the idea that, like, go in and have the special of the day. One of the things that I have been trying to get in the habit of is, every time I go to a restaurant, whether or not it's a restaurant where I look at the menu and due to my own dietary requirements, there's literally one option, and that's fine, and I'll eat it, and life is great. But I always want to hear the narrative of the restaurant, and I want to get the perspective of the people there, for two reasons. One, because they have the insight. I mean, they're the people who are working in this environment every day are going to know, hey, everybody orders the burger, but in reality, the shrimp, which we only sell, 10% of daily, is by far the greatest thing on the menu. But also because I worry that we're in a time where people working in the service industry are being viewed as mechanisms. And I think it's important that we pull that out. So I'm curious about, for you, like, how do you encourage others to discover the landscapes that are happening in their communities? So if you're listening to this and you're currently located in Brno, Russia, or you're currently located in Sacramento, California, or you're located in ye old Syracuse, New York, how do people discover these things in a manner that is meaningful?
So I can only speak from an outside perspective, but whenever I visit a new city that I know nothing about, I'll look into their free weekend papers. Maybe they've got a periodical, maybe they've got a monthly kind of community gazette things that go out, and they almost all have best new restaurants, or they've got this place is opening or this place is closing. I look at what's legendary in the areas. I look at the places that everyone's talking about on their best of lists, and if there's no best of list, I look on Yelp, and if there's no Yelp, I look on Google, and wherever Google is, then it's just like restaurants like this, restaurants that are similar to this, then you can start to find the trends. Then you can start to find the real reality of what is the food scene in this specific area that I'm at. How can I define this through its people, through its offerings, through its cuisine? Where are the Chinatowns? Where is the Little Tokyo? Where is the Mexican section? Where can I find the Latinx food? That's where you start to explore more. The deeper you dive into, yes, everyone can say, oh, this is the best pizza place. Why is it the best pizza place, and what's in that area that says this is why people go to this area for pizza? So exploring the landscape, exploring not only the socioeconomical areas but also the cultural areas. How is the city divided? How is it set up? Where does it overlap? Where does it share? And you could find those restaurants, those little pockets in every neighborhood I've ever been to, where it's just like, no, you go here for the best sushi, but then you go over here for the best bread, because this is the baker. This is the baker district, and then finding that out. I love exploring that and finding that out. But you definitely have to do the research on your own, through community conversations. And then what I do is when I go to restaurants, I'm saying, I'm torn. I've read up. I've done the research. I've looked up online, but I'm torn between these two things. Maybe they're not very similar. But talking to the people, seeing the people that live there, seeing what would you get. I love asking that. I love getting that reflection of, oh, well, I've worked here for this many years, and this is my favorite dish. Or this, why you may not have said this dish, you can't miss this dish while you're here. And experiencing that is so unique.
When it's interesting in a world where this is not a critique, Dave, so please take it with the greatest salt. But we're in a world now where the idea of exploring often means that we're looking at a digital screen of some kind. And I think on the flip side, one of the things that you're kind of alluding to is that when you're discovering a new region, whether it's in your own town or not, like, if I go to the north side here, like there's a bunch of Italian restaurants I've never tried before. I know that's where a good place to try a new Italian restaurant is, that doesn't necessarily mean I've done it. And I think that using your device as a chance to get to a certain part of a city, a certain part of a certain region, and then letting serendipity or whatever you want to call it be something that helps you find that food. I was in Nashville a few months ago and rediscovered East Nashville, which is kind of the like the hipster region of Nashville, and it's amazing. And I went to a place called I Dream of Weenie, which was a hot dog stand that was from like a converted VW bus that I had been to before. And courtesy of conversations there, they were suggesting, hey, go check out this other place. And we're walking around and all of a sudden discover a vegan biscuit place called Gorilla Biscuits that has what did I eat? I ate a jalapeno cranberry vegan biscuit, right?
Sounds amazing.
And it was really good, but the thing that I thought was more important than me just giving a bunch of shout outs is that I'm convinced that meal held so much more significance to me because I let myself explore and I let myself just find it. And I think that there's a lot of value in removing ourselves from the typical conventions of oh, cool, that has the best Yelp review, to interesting. There's a bunch of restaurants that all have really good Yelp reviews in this area. I'm going to take an Uber there and I'm just going to walk around and I'm going to hear what people are saying and I'm going to see where the lines are and I'm going to determine which bar I want to hang out at, or, which place maybe I just want to get an appetizer at, and kind of make the decisions from there. I think despite the fact that we're at a point in culture where we have everything open to us, spontaneity is kind of losing itself a little bit in the way in which we consume food.
There's definitely, yeah, I love that alternative ways of travel. I think for me, it's taking it back to the guidebook, back to the days of the travel book, where you would have this thing that was printed 3 or 4 or 5 years ago, or maybe even longer ago, where the experience that you're going to have is not necessarily what was written down in the pages of that book, but at least you have a foundation. Just like you said, you're doing that research, you're finding that out. I love the digital dynamic of like just how literally dynamic it is, where it's just every day this restaurant is changing and this scene is changing, but you can keep up with it remotely through the digital medium, but you have to go out there to see it with your own eyes. A great, I don't know if it's as much of an anecdote, but I went to Baltimore. I went to the Fadley's. It's a very old, not very old, from the 70s. It was like the number one place to go get crab cakes, but now it has fallen quite into disrepair. Very bad neighborhood, very high crime area. A lot of the places are boarded up. I took an Uber out there. I got the crab cake, and it was not what I had read in the guidebooks and what I had experienced in the reviews, because those reviews were from 15, 20 years ago. But it was an experience that I was able to have, like you said, just by going out and doing and seeing, that I can now share and explore. And not all surprises are good, but not all surprises are bad either. There's a lot of learning that can be done through the act of going out and being spontaneous.
I love
I
it.
love
We're just two spontaneous, just really exciting people, Dave. That's how we
Truly.
rock.
I
Um,
honestly, I plan everything out to a T. I'm like, let me see that restaurant, let me see that menu, let me see what are their hours. I'm making the reservations. I'm arriving at 7:15. I'm ordering this dish, and then hoping that it works out, that I've done my research well enough.
well, and there's also something to be said about, you compared to a traditional diner. You need to make sure that you have that reservation 4 months in advance, 6 months in
Mm,
advance,
mm,
whatever it is, in order to get into whatever. There's a restaurant called Dirt Candy that I really want to go to in New York, and every time I'm there, I'm like, I'll go to New York in 3 months, and it's packed. I can't get a reservation.
Oh, you book it
But
now and then
that
you go. Yeah.
I know I'll book it for my birthday, in the summer.
Isn't
Um,
that the wife of Grady Hendrix?
it is in fact the
Right.
wife of Grady
Yeah.
Hendrix. I was debating whether or not I should bring that up as an example,
I
but I
just read
thought,
about it. Yeah.
yeah, I really interesting, for those who are unaware. So Grady Hendrix is a horror writer. Actually, his new book, at the time of this recording, just came out, How to Sell a Haunted House. And his wife is now a Michelin Star chef, owning a
Mhm.
Michelin Star restaurant, and it's called Dirt Candy. It's a vegetarian, vegan-friendly restaurant, where courses are set months in advance. You have you order your one option, but it's produced at the highest quality, and they've been a restaurant for a long time. Is it 15 years or so, something like
Yeah.
that? And just received a Michelin star, and
Mhm.
if you're interested in reading about it, I strongly encourage Googling the interview. So Dirt Candy, Michelin Star, you should be able to find this article, but the entire article is about her perception, and I feel really bad I can't think of what her name is right now, but her perception that the Michelin Star organization is changing, and that
Yes.
is why that they've always been Michelin Star quality, but the idea of vegan and vegetarian restaurants has never really been included, and now they're being welcomed into it.
I love that new inclusiveness of, just like I had said, that Asian restaurant that it's got a Michelin star, that's brand new. I mean, that's within the past couple of years. They were always the height of expense. And it was always the more you spent, the higher you'd be. But now the whole world of criticism is changing. Food accessibility, food availability. I think that's the name of the game now. They realize that they have to offer food options to everyone from every spectrum of life.
It's awesome. And it's all, I also think there's something, it's always a blessing and a curse when something sort of takes the main stage, but just
Of course.
seeing presentation of food and the way in which it's permeating our culture, uh, in a manner where even if you're not going to these restaurants, we now have media that is getting us accessible to the procedures of these restaurants. So you can
Mm.
bring those procedures into your own home and either emulate them or train yourself on something. I just love the fact that the idea that in order to create, for lack of a better term, high-end food, you no longer have to go to the Culinary Institute of America. You can watch the stuff on YouTube and you can make it at home,
Mhm.
and you can blog about it and you can send it to David the Gastronome. Uh, but we're at a point where food culture, especially higher end food culture, maybe the price points aren't changing, but at least the accessibility and the windows are opening. And I think that's pretty exciting.
Absolutely. I think you can absolutely have the same dining experience at the lowest price point at someone's house in a private experience as you would in a huge operation that costs millions, is covered in crystals.
I'm gonna go eat some powdered gold, just for fun.
So
I
that's one
just
of
put it
those
in my
things where it's
yogurt.
just like, yeah, like I hate those gimmicks. I hate the TikTok gimmicks where it's just like covered in gold and it'll be better. And it's like, no, that adds no flavor and it's worthless and it's just excess for excess. Same with a lot of these caviars and a lot of these just like ridiculous additions to all these truffles. It's like such a waste. Like none of this will actually taste good. Nothing. None of it looks good. I think the easily most accessible example of that is those milkshakes that are huge. That are everywhere. It's like, how the hell do you eat that? You can't. It's covered in cake. It's covered in sauce. The cup itself is covered. You can't even pick it up. It's like I don't want that. It's not a dining experience that I want. It's a purely visual dining experience, which I definitely want to get away from. You have to be able to enjoy the food. You have to be able to eat it.
I love it. So I wanna switch gears a little bit. So listeners at home, as maybe it's not clear, but like Dave and I are besties, and
Uh-huh.
one of the things that we both have in common that we discovered very early on in our relationship is that we both have an unhealthy passion for film.
Mm.
We both have degrees in cinema that we only sort of use, and more recently, I'm teaching I'm in education, and I teach students about media production on the regular. And Dave has made his way into the TV industry, which is really exciting. So, as I described in my intro, Dave is the host of Played at Pittsburgh, which is a TV show you can watch on the Very Local app. And there are a few episodes on YouTube if you, for some reason, don't have access to a device that can get Very Local. My favorite thing is he introduces himself every episode with Dave. I'm food blogger and Pittsburgh native Dave Forman. He is joined on that show with judges Emily Catalano and Claudie Pierre. And it's a really cool show where local chefs are highlighted. They come from a variety of different places. Some of them are personal chefs for in people's homes. Some of them own restaurants. A lot of them are entrepreneurs, which I get really excited about. And they're all competing for fun and for charity. And I think it's really cool. Dave, can you tell us a little bit about how that project got off the ground?
Yeah, so Very Local is owned by Hearst, big communications hub. They've got hubs all over. One of their major hubs is in Pittsburgh, and they wanted to create kind of a national cable access, which we don't really see as much anymore. You want that taste of home. You want that insight into what is the community talking about? What are they about? What are their people focused on? And so that's where Very Local came. The concept of Very Local came from, and cooking food. I mean, like I said, the universal language. So we've got Played at Pittsburgh. They're on their second season. We've got over 13 episodes now. They're available to stream, and each episode we've got these local chefs going to a local market, picking up local food, which I absolutely love, cooking it fresh, an appetizer, an entree, and a dessert in just 45 minutes. And they get money towards a local charity, like you said, to support keeping it all local, keeping it all focused. But you can be a Pittsburgh expat. You can be somebody who's never even been to Pittsburgh, and you can watch an episode of that show and get a feeling of what our community is like, what our people is like, what our people are like, what kind of offerings we have. And so I love that insight. And that's what I loved about Very Local, is that I can go on, I can see shows from Baltimore, Sacramento, from the Midwest, from New Orleans, and I can get a feeling of visiting those areas, of being in those areas without actually having to make the trip down. And so being able to have that access and that platform, I'm so thankful for, and I love it so much.
It's great, and you're such a natural food host. And one thing that listeners may not know about the infamous Dave Foreman is that he's also a long form improv performer, an actor and writer, and has this sort of, despite being very I don't know. You kind of, you're not quite a wallflower, but you don't mind kind
Mm.
of like feeding into the background.
Oh,
You just have this natural performative edge. And some of your quips just bring me joy in that
yeah.
show. You'll just get these random moments where you can tell the producers like, that's gold. I gotta add that in.
No, those
So
moments make me the happiest when they, because we shoot these 12-hour days from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. So then finally seeing the finished product, I have memories obviously from shooting all day, but then to see it laid out in the 22-minute episode, it's really both humbling and also really makes me feel really good about myself. I'm like, man, that shot just turned out perfectly, and that was me in that comment, or that way I reacted, or that comment that I made about food. Like that was a moment I'm so glad they captured and were able to present on the show.
And I think one of the things that I really appreciate about it is that, in a culture of food media where so much of it is focused on glut, so much of it is focused on, unsustainable travel methods. Like how many of these shows are like, I'm a celebrity who's got too much time on my hands, so I'm going to travel to all these countries, spend all this money, and people can film me being me. Your show is not focused on that at all. And like as the host and as somebody who's deeply involved in this, like I really appreciate the culture that you build. Because it's friendly competition and everybody is really trying to do their best. I think it's the one of the few American cooking shows that has like a beautiful little hint of the Great British Bake Show, where the episode I'm watching last night, one guy buys truffle oil and the other chef forgets an oil, and he's like, hey man, can I borrow your truffle oil and maybe a lemon, please? And he's like, dude, please. And they're handing ingredients to each other, they're sharing fryers. I just think it's a really beautiful portrait of the culture you create, and also just the culture of Pittsburgh. Like whenever I watch that show, I really feel like I'm getting to the heart of humanity into a town that I have not had enough time to really involve myself with.
I agree 100%. The people come through so strongly. Not only are these chefs going to public markets that you can go to if you visit on a specific Saturday, not only are they competing not against each other, but for these personal charities that are locally benefiting from their skill, but they're raised by these areas. They come from these areas. They know the food that's offered in the area, so they can offer their own personal touch and spin on it. You see these people come through and they're just so kind and generous and giving, and they build a network through our show. I love the off-camera moments of these chefs talking to the judges, or talking to the production, or talking with me or with each other about like, what's your experience been like? How can we make each other more successful? And seeing those relationships grow outside of the show has just been so valuable and so rewarding to me.
It's great, and it's a show that I think it doesn't have a problem highlighting growth with failure, which I think is really important. That a lot of the amount of times that you watch a chef prepare this thing, and then somebody drops something, and then they have to put it back together, and everybody's like coming together and saying, no, man, this is just part of the process. Like, it's okay. There's the inherent perfectionism that we kind of think of when it comes to what we expect from higher end dining or something like that is not there, which I think is neat. The other thing I want to comment on is that, other like feeling like I'm in the heart of Pittsburgh. Like when I think about Pittsburgh food, having known you for a number of years and having, eaten in Pittsburgh and associated with other people in Pittsburgh and watched this show, my perception of Pittsburgh food is that like it is the comfort food capital of the world. Like, do you like salad? Awesome. It would make a salad more comfortable, making sure that we put French fries on top of it. And
Mm-hmm.
that's Pittsburgh food. One of the things that I was noticing yesterday was that I've never seen a cooking show where so many people put bread on a grill.
Mm. Yeah, we do love the bruschetta. That's a big thing in Pittsburgh. You got carbs, we're going to feature it somewhere. We're going to add pasta. We're going to put dumplings on top of rice noodles. We're going to put, ravioli on top of pasta. We're going to put French fries on top of a salad. We love that comfort food, like you said, but that means so much, so many different things to so many different people, but it evokes a feeling, which I love about food. And that's the universality. That's the universal language of food, is that finding that feeling, evoking it, and really sharing the moment with someone that you've never met before.
It's so great. One thing I'm curious about is just that, all of a sudden transitioning from being David the Gastronome and doing your Instagram account and food blogging to all of a sudden becoming a food host, for a very large organization with very significant reach. You're doing publicity for it. Spoiler alert, this is not Dave Forman's first podcast interview. I'm curious about how you see the Dave Forman brand, and I'm totally going to just put you on the spot on this, but how do you see the Dave Forman brand changing, courtesy of these types of opportunities, and where do you want to take it? Where do you want Dave Forman or Dave the Gastronome to evolve into?
Oh, that's a great question. I love that. Definitely, I just want it to be me. I feel like the same way when I go on job interviews or when I was going on dates before I met my wife. Like I'm just bringing me to it. I'm bringing my personality, my style, my approach. I really don't want to change who I feel like I am at the core. I really don't want to change that humor, that smile. I don't want to change my approach to things. So that's what I offer. And it's more, I don't want to say take it or leave it, but I really want to be as generous as I can with my space and with folks and with their space. And if there's no space for me in your area, your environment, then I understand and I applaud you and I support your creative endeavors. But if you need someone like me, man, do I have somebody great to offer you? It's me.
I love it. Well, so just before I forget to put the plug in, for anybody who has not had a chance to check out the Very Local app and Played at Pittsburgh, I strongly encourage you to look it up. If you want to take a step back to season one, you can look up Played at Pittsburgh on YouTube. There's one episode that's on there, I believe, and it is with Chef Claudie Pierre, who was such a remarkable contestant that he ended up becoming a judge on season two, which is pretty cool.
And I love that. I never would have met him. I never would have had this experience other than the show, but he's someone that I will follow for the rest of my life. I will see wherever he's cooking, anything he's involved in. His Eat initiative is absolutely amazing. What the community work that he does for the kids in the communities, helping teach them life skills and helping them get set up for jobs outside of high school. Like, it's just so incredible to me, the work and love he's giving back into the neighborhood, into the area. I love everything Chef Claudia does, and he's so infectious in his personality. So you want to be excited with him, and meeting people like that. That's the best part of the show, truly.
On the date night episode, he has a really good moment where they're talking about cooking with garlic. And he's like, yo, hold on. He's like, the episode is called Date Night, not First Kiss.
That's cool.
That's so good. I guess just a couple of wrap-ups from me, and this is something that on this show I think is really important, because this is not a show about me, despite the fact that my name is on it and I'm taking up way too much airspace. But I want to make sure that we have a chance to meditate on ideas that maybe we haven't covered yet. And I'm curious, like, are there any sort of topics related to food or Pittsburgh or culture building that you don't feel that we've tackled yet that you'd like to throw in there?
One thing that I love that's come as a result of this show is I'm not looking for a Food Network show. I'm not looking for anything bigger. What I love is that folks have reached out from the community. They've said to me, like, hey, I saw you on Play to Pittsburgh. Would you be interested in coming to speak to this class? Would you be interested in doing a panel and talking to this group? And that is truly success for me, that I can influence, that I can talk, that I can share my story, because I just feel like I just got lucky through all this. All the hard work that I've done, it pales in comparison to the successes that I'm seeing now. So be able to share the stories, share food, share the Pittsburgh insight, also share like a community insight. Like, how do I see my community? How do I see my area and my world? And maybe I can inspire a voice of tomorrow, a future tomorrow. That is true success, being offered those opportunities that I didn't have before. I am just so incredibly lucky. I love that. I love being able to talk and help people out. And I want people to thrive and succeed. And I want them to outshine me as well. I want Pittsburgh to be known for other cooking shows that are greater and better and offer more insight, things that I would never even know about, offering insights from backgrounds I've never had. That's what I want my voice to be able to do, to empower others. That's my dream.
And I think you've done a great job of it, Dave. And I don't mean to just put my teacher hat on this, but I think you'll agree with me that if you are passionate about anything, and I don't care what it is, if you're really excited about coloring books, if you just want to engineer things out of spaghetti sticks, if you want to, sing every Disney princess theme song as though you're a frog, like, go do it. Find as long as it comes from a place of pure passion. If it comes from a place of ego, it will never be successful. But if it comes from a place of pure passion and you're willing to find a venue to put it out there, in my experience, in your experience, in most people I know, people will gravitate toward that energy because we all know that there's so much negative energy in the world, and there's so many people that don't have any interest in contributing to culture that you have a magnetic effect when you're putting something out there that you love. And even if people don't know what it is, they will gravitate to it. I think you are the pinnacle of that. And I
Oh,
really do sincerely feel like we're just seeing the beginning of this growth pattern.
thank you
And I'm
so
really
much.
excited.
Oh, I really
So,
appreciate it. It means so much to me. I can't stress that enough. That finding out what you're passionate about makes me just. I mean, speaking in the general you to anyone makes me excited. And just like you said, I want to know everyone's passion. I want to see everyone out there thriving and being their most genuine self. That's a dream. That would be incredible.
So, Dave, do you know what just happened?
What just happened?
We just time traveled.
Wow, that
Do you
didn't
feel?
feel like any time at all.
I know. Do you feel? I have like kind of like light pins and needles on me.
Oh yeah. Like your foot's falling asleep, like your fingers. Yeah, I got that a little bit,
It,
like a metallic taste in my mouth.
yeah, it's strange. I think
Yeah,
like our facial hair changed slightly.
a little bit.
Yeah.
And the lighting, the sun has moved.
Oh, the sun has moved. So when we recorded the interview that our dear listeners have just been listening to, that was in January, and here we are, 8 months later, doing a follow-up. But I first off want to say thank you for being willing to be my test case for my first ever podcast interview.
Always. I
And
love it. I love being a part of every creative endeavor that you have. I will support wholeheartedly, foolishly, and blindly because I believe in you that much.
and I believe in you too, Dave.
Oh, thank you.
So I wanted to just take a moment to update people on what's now happening. We're recording this in August of 2023. What excitement have you been up to as we've talked about it a little? You've been doing some fundraiser work, which is really cool. You're working with Crisis Center North, and then you did this really cool project for the Focus on Renewal program. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, it was an awesome opportunity. So this local kind of an after school program, they do skill building, they do career building, career skills. They're called Focus on Renewal. They're based in McKees Rocks, which is a very underrepresented neighborhood in Pittsburgh. And they reached out to me and asked would I be interested in coming to talk to some culinary students. So I showed up. It was a really wonderful little class, maybe about 8 kids, all between the ages of 12, 13, 18, 19. And they teach them culinary skills, knife skills, how to work in a kitchen, safe skills. They get them serve safe certified, which is amazing. So these kids are coming right out of high school. They can be serve safe certified. And I talked to them about plating, and I talked to them about tastes and flavor breakdown and like the different things that an eater might go through, taking it from that perspective, kind of providing the other side. It was a wonderful, wonderful experience. I got to participate in their Steel Chef competition where they had the kids kind of compete, kind of an Iron Chef opportunity. I unfortunately wasn't able to make it to the finals, but the semifinals were amazing. They did just these really cool dishes, really unique, different takes on dishes that really fascinating, great stuff. Little bruschetta. They had like a grilled chicken, just wonderful. And it was just so wonderful to see these kids coming up in a underrepresented area, kids who might not have opportunities regularly to be provided these opportunities by the FOR, by the Focus on Renewal, and to be a part of that, to be able to provide my professional perspective was just an awesome opportunity. I really hope to do it again next year. So hopefully we'll do it again.
That's awesome. And in our conversation from 8 months ago, before we time traveled, we talked extensively about the fact that if you are passionate about something and you are willing to put it out into the universe, whether it's just by telling people about it or by posting about it, or let's say creating an entire TV show about it, that's always a good way to go. And these types of opportunities can only come when you're willing to put yourself out there and being willing to hear that people need your skills elsewhere.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think the biggest thing for me is that not only because feels like an extension of the opportunity I was given with Very Local and with Plate at Pittsburgh, this is now my opportunity to give back to the community that I have come from and been raised from, that I can now help
influence and enhance other people's lives just by giving my perspective, just by saying, here's the perspective of someone, host of a TV game show, food game show, local food writer, local professional that you might not normally get in your life, that I can now provide just further insight, and I can now have their insight brought into my life to make it richer as well. It's just really an opportunity that I'm forever thankful for, and I cannot wait to do it again next year, because I feel like those kind of community interactions and working with kids and working with people up and coming, still unsure about their way in the world. I'm still unsure, I mean, about everything. But like being able to have those conversations so early on can really provide insight and provide like, here's opportunity that you might not know that was out there. Now you can take it.
It's so awesome. And you've been a busy bee as well. You went to we always think about zombies when we think about Pittsburgh. We think about the Steelers. We think about Mr. Rogers. But the one thing most people don't think about unless you're downtown at a certain time of year is pickles. You went to Picklesburgh and you were doing some filming there. Can you tell us about that?
Absolutely. So Picklesburgh, voted by USA Today as the #1 specialty food festival in the country. And I love it. It is just, I'd say, probably about a mile or so. We shut down downtown, shut down some streets, and then vendors set up. People bring in merch and then make food, all focused around pickling. So you'll have everything from your dills to your half sours to kimchi to like pierogies with dill and potato, and just a really fascinating. There was a cucumber margarita that one chef did, and then they did a pickled watermelon rind in that, and it's everything from sweet to savory, all focused around pickles, because all the heart of it is the Heinz 57, the Heinz pickle, where it all started in Pittsburgh. And so we were kind of keeping that tradition going, focusing on the pickling, I'd say the Eastern European, German roots of food, of pickling. You got to survive through the winter. What do? You take your vegetables, you preserve them. So preservation, Pittsburgh's very big on that preservation focus, and Picklesburgh has just blown up. And now we have pickle ice cream and pickle bread and hot sauce pickles and just everything. It's crazy.
It's awesome, and it's because Heinz is housed there, right? So you guys, you've got your ketchup too, and your relish. I remember I went a number of years ago before we knew each other, and had these amazing pickle egg rolls.
Oh, that sounds wonderful.
Yeah, it was a really nice surprise. We didn't even know it was happening that day. It was like, we need something to eat. My friend's like, go for a walk with me, and we're walking across a bridge, and I've never seen so many vendors specialized in pickle related items in my life.
That's amazing. Yeah, that was Picklesburgh. That was probably the Warren that you ate, and they have a Cuban pickle egg roll. It's like it's got ham in it, and and now that I say that, no, you probably didn't eat that, but this one's got ham and cheese and a nice dill pickle in there, like a good Cuban sandwich, all in an egg roll, and that is fantastic.
Yeah, I'm not very carnivorous, but I support anybody who is. So that's that's awesome. I just love knowing what the options are. I just think it's so cool to see the way in which every restaurant in Pittsburgh is like, all right, what are we doing with pickles?
We have some restaurants that are still offering things from Picklesburgh. I went to a restaurant just the other week, and they're still offering their pickle pizza down at the Voodoo Brewery downtown. They're offering a pickle pizza that they had premiered at Picklesburgh, and they're still featuring on their menu because it was that well received.
That's awesome. And for anybody who's interested in that, if you look up Dave Forman Picklesburgh, there's a really nice little news piece about it, where Dave also interviews a chef from a little company called Bebe, which is something that we quite like.
Absolutely. Bebe's Kitchen, downtown Pittsburgh, offering the best Korean food in downtown, no question. Their kimchi is just outstanding. They have so many different types of kimchi. One thing I didn't realize talking about pickles, I thought kimchi was just the cabbage, and he corrected me. Kimchi refers to all vegetables that have been pickled kind of in this manner, and this spicy gochujang with the vinegar, different versions, but that kimchi refers to like a pickled radish or a pickled cucumber or pickled daikon or pickled cabbage, as most people are familiar with. And they do so many different types of kimchi, and it's my favorite that I've ever had.
We are not paid for that sponsorship. I want to be clear.
No, not at all. But Baby's Kitchen, if you're in Pittsburgh, yeah, check it out.
And it's within walking distance to the convention center. So if you're ever down
Hmm.
there, it's a place to go. Well, Dave, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you being on the show. It's just always such a joy to sort of get your perspective. I have a feeling we're gonna have I have a couple other Pittsburgh themed show ideas that are gonna happen in the food that are not food related. Well, one of them could
Okay.
arguably consider food related, but we're gonna tackle those in the years to come, which would be
I
great.
love it.
For anybody who's interested in following you, seeing your endeavors, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
So my main website, davidthegastronome.com, Gastronome, gastronome. It is a pun based on obviously someone who's gastronomic and a gnome. So David the Gnome, taking all there. So you can look up David the Gastronome, and that is me. I don't think anyone else has that. So my Instagram is out there, my Facebook page, my website, and I think that's everything. Yeah,
That's awesome. It's full of
that's exciting. Yeah, and also check out Played at Pittsburgh, available only on very local, a free streaming app. There's 2 seasons out there. The more views we get, the more opportunities, and the more likely there will be a season 3. So you can check out if you're in Baltimore. There's Played at Baltimore is out there. Played at Sacramento is out there, and Played at Pittsburgh. 2 seasons of it, starring yours truly, head judge and head host. I love it so much to be able to feature that many local restaurateurs in Pittsburgh in one place. Is just, I said before, a dream come true, and to be able to show it to a international audience, it's amazing.
it's so cool, and I think it's just important to recognize too that with Played at Pittsburgh, that's the pilot season. It's
Yeah.
they came up with all the systems for this. So Baltimore and Sacramento, please go out and watch all of them, especially if you're local and especially if you're interested in traveling and just sort of getting another perspective on the world. But while you're looking through it, look it through the lens where you're just considering the fact that Dave Forman's feedback has helped set up the structure of these other markets, which I think is pretty awesome.
It's a gift. It's a beautiful gift, truly. The Rocket Fuel, they're the studio that put it on. They have just been amazing to work with, and their professionalism, and they're hilarious and just nice folks. All the folks I've worked with over there have just been amazing. So really big props to them for creating such an incredible show. And I'm so excited to be a part of it.
Well, that's awesome. Well, to my meditators out there, thanks so much for tuning in. We'll be back on September 13th. The next podcast episode will drop with Jamie Santos. She's a Syracuse-based tattoo artist, but travels all over the country and all over the world to do different specialized tattoo events. She's an entrepreneur and a community art organizer, and we're going to have a really awesome conversation just about her journey as an artist and about the way in which we can best impact communities and enhance communities through public art. So September 13th, tune in. Dave, do you have anything else you want to say?
Say, make space for conversation. You just might learn something.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. Please share, please like, please go check out Dave Forman, and have a wonderful, wonderful day.